Hello, thanks for being in a new video. Apple has just unveiled the iPhone 16e, and we're gonna share with you the first thoughts and first impressions about this device. We must begin. Let's start with the most basic, which is the name. But with the simple name, we can already intuit a little of what Apple has in mind for this device and this change, since it is actually the successor to the iPhone SE as the most economical iPhone proposal. However, now Apple has wanted to include it in the iPhone 16 family to have a complete portfolio of devices and that all have the same name of a flagship product and not be perceived as the cheap iPhone, nothing more. The letter E seems to me to be essential, and the truth of the matter is that it is interesting to see what Apple considers essential, what we will see translated into this device. Samsung, on the other hand, has the FE series, which is considered as for fans but has more or less the same intention, which is to keep the essentials to be able to adjust the price. So it really strikes me what Samsung considers as essential and what Apple considers as essential. Let's start by talking a little bit about the design of this device that comes with quite strong pillars such as resistance, because it retains water resistance, retains ceramic shield, and in this case there is simply a change. Aesthetic because it doesn't have the dynamic island, but instead still has a notch that looks like a slightly older iPhone. But I think with this design it still looks modern enough. And here the interesting thing is that the IP68 that has this iPhone passed a test of 30 min to 6M depth, i.e. has a higher level of resistance to IP68 that support most devices that is 1.5 meters deep for 30 min. So it strikes me that Apple has not made any sacrifice in this regard. Perfectly could have put IP67 and maybe it was not going to cause us any discomfort, no complaints or discomfort, but has maintained a very high level of resistance against water. Something curious is that it will only be available in two colors, black or white, but Apple gives you the possibility to buy cases of various official colors, and I think that in a sense they are right. Most people who use an iPhone will be able to buy them in different colors, put in a case, so I think they could save a little bit of cost by reducing the variety of colors available on the cover and just move it to the case. Either way, you can create various color combinations by considering these palettes. Another key element in terms of design will be the action button that has been moved to this new generation. As previously, they only had the switch that was retained on past models. So with this, it is perceived as a more modern iPhone, and obviously the button I think can be useful for a good number of people if you map it to some specific actions. Although I have already said in previous iPhone content that I would like Apple to allow you to configure this button with 1, 2 or 3 touches or long press. But in this case, you can only activate it with long press, and I think that takes away a variety of options that could take advantage of it. Even more so, but it's present this button, we're going to find aerospace grade aluminum frames, so apparently it won't sacrifice in terms of pressure resistance. If you usually stick it in your back pocket, there wouldn't be much to worry about. It also comes with USB-C port to completely abandon Lightning across the entire iPhone lineup, which I think was an expected change. So in this sense, there aren't too many surprises. But as you realize, there are no sacrifices unlike other generations. Past of a proposal for an economic iPhone, where for example betting on plastic or similar things, then here you keep the experience that you would find in any iPhone 16. Of course, in the more premium Pro and Pro Max models, we are going to find titanium and possibly some other more advanced details. But within the portfolio of essentials, Apple keeps several of these things. What it doesn't have from the iPhone 16 series is the camera control, which is this side button that personally, I do not consider it very useful, so I do not think it is too big a sacrifice. We will find 7.8mm thick, so it is remarkably also weighs 167 grams. So it will also be very light when you hold it in your hand, and this is possible thanks to the fact that it is a compact iPhone. It has a 6.1-inch screen, that is, it will have a very similar size to the iPhone 16 or iPhone 15. iPhone 14, and in this case we are talking about an OLED screen of very good quality in terms of the image, the colors, the contrast. The level of detail is also positive thanks to the resolution of 2532 x 1170 pixels, reaching a density of 460, which is what Apple uses in all its iPhone products to denote Retina resolution. The screen has HDR capabilities. It also has True Tone technology, but it does not have promotion. That is, it is still 60 Hz, and this is probably one of the weakest points of the product. Although a large number of people will not perceive this difference, especially in the case of the iPhone. All because this device is focused on a key audience, and we see it because in its presentation and on its sales page on multiple occasions, compare this device with very old generations such as iPhone 12, iPhone 12 mini, iPhone SE 3rd, among others. So this iPhone is completely dedicated to these people who have an iPhone for several years, and maybe they're already considering changing it, but they feel comfortable with the iPhone they are with. So they surely just want to renewing it. So this is going to be the option that they're going to have available. And the 60 Hz screen is present in past generations. So they're not really going to perceive it to be a bad thing to have 60 Hz on a device at this price point. Of course, if we compare it to the Android device catalog, the screen is going to look very plain, as we see higher quality screens on Android, even from devices costing maybe half of what this device will cost. So the screen is nothing spectacular. In fact, it could be its weak point, although as I tell you, for a large number of people, it will be a very good screen. We will also find stereo sound, and with respect to the cameras, at the front we will find a 12 megapixel camera with f1.9 aperture and autofocus. So it does not make any kind of sacrifice on the front camera, and I like it because it maintains a very good aperture, and also the autofocus I think is vital over everything if you want to create content or something to show some product a little bit closer and the camera is able to focus. So here again we see that for Apple it's essential to have a good quality front-facing camera. In this case, along with the front camera will be placed the Face ID system on this front notch for advanced facial recognition. This front camera also has the ability to record in 4K, even with Dolby Vision at 60 frames per second. That's why I insist that it is very noticeable that the front camera is essential to the iPhone experience, although anyway, its users take selfies in the mirror using the rear camera, but for videos it's fine. Regarding the rear camera, in this case they have only incorporated one lens. The integrated sensor is 48 megapixels. Apple has called it an overly advanced camera because it has two cameras in one. It's simply a crop within the sensor that many other manufacturers apply, so I don't see it as the big new thing, but I think it's a useful camera at the end of the day. Possibly if someone is coming from an iPhone that has ultra-wide camera, if they're going to come to miss this ultra-wide camera. So personally it seems to me that Apple should have placed at least two cameras, and this is where the difference between the essential for Apple and the essential for Samsung is most noticeable. As I was telling you a few days ago, a moment because the Galaxy S24 FE, for example, if you have three cameras that have a very wide focal length range from the ultra-wide camera, the main camera and the telephoto. But in this case, Apple sacrifices the rest of cameras and only retains as essential as possible the main camera, which by the way has aperture f1.6, so it is very bright. It also has optical stabilization, and if it allows photographs in 24 megapixels, so it is a really very good camera. The only problem is that it does not. Is accompanied by two others or one to increase a little more the range of amplitude or proximity that can be reached. The maximum digital zoom it will support will be 10x, so both in zoom and in amplitude it will fall a little short. Fortunately for portrait photography, it does let you use this 2x perspective to have this feeling of a telephoto lens, although you must have good lighting. But this camera lens also maintains the sapphire protection. So it's interesting to see Apple's whole strategy. And with respect to video recording, just like the front-facing camera, it supports 4K Dolby Vision at 60 frames per second. Regarding the battery, you know that Apple does not communicate the specific figure in milliamp hour capacity it has, but shares approximate figures of how many hours it would last in various activities. And taking as a reference to the iPhone 16, which has the same size with the same processor, it is striking that in this case, placed a slightly smaller battery as it reaches 21 hours of playback according to Apple figures playing streaming video, while the iPhone 16 reaches 24 hours. So there are 3 hours of difference in this activity that I think is a fairly daily activity and definitely draws attention that it will not be a battery so remarkable. Although as I told you earlier, the target audience, they try to attract it by saying that it has longer life than the iPhone 12, that the iPhone 11 and that all those past models. So if there is a user who has one of these old iPhones and is going to renew it, he will even feel that the battery is very good compared to what the battery lasted currently. But it does not mean that the battery is something spectacular. In this case, it will support fast charging with a 20 watts adapter, supporting 50% charging in 30 min. Like the other models, this iPhone 16 also retains wireless charging, but will not have available the charging of 25 watts that the iPhone 16 and higher models have available with respect to MagSafe charging, although probably if you're going to be able to use magnetic accessories and have them stick. But it's not going to support 25 watts. The processor is the Apple A, which is the same processor that is used in iPhone 16 and 16 Plus, but in addition to having a processor made by Apple. In this case, they also have the first modem designed by Apple, which is called C. They claim that this modem will be more power efficient, so it should help battery life. The modem, for those who don't know, helps to connect to the internet and everything to do with calls. Previously, they used modems made by Qualcomm, even Intel and some others. But now they have designed their own modem, just as they once started designing their own chips. So in this sense, there is no sacrifice at all. And here again is where you can see the difference between what Apple considers essential and what Samsung considers essential, because Samsung usually cuts back the most on the processor. But this iPhone is going to be super powerful with very good capabilities, and also this processor enables it for many Apple Intelligence features, which remember that for now most of them work only in English. But during this event, they also announced that in the month of April, finally, it will be available in Spanish and other languages. So this will be another of the main attractions for users of older iPhones to make the decision to renew their iPhone if they see that all these options are already available in a model that will not be so expensive. In fact, during the presentation, they gave a lot of emphasis to all these functions of Apple Intelligence, how to help you write a text with a different tone. So simply with a text, you can say, give it a touch, and more emoticons or something similar, and it will automatically change all the text. Or the generation of specific emojis, where you can tell it to make an emoji of a puppy with a hat or whatever you want. Also the ability to remove people from photos. Many other things that are part of Apple Intelligence, including the use of GPT chat directly from Siri. So these are capabilities that are interesting and perhaps useful for some users, and that will now be available in this economic model. Apple does not share the RAM capacity included, but if it supports Apple Intelligence, I would say it should be at least 8 gigabytes, but that's just speculation. Regarding storage, fortunately, they did not release a 64GB model, which would have been disastrous and full of criticism, but the most basic model starts at 128GB, which, anyway, for 2025 already feels a bit low, but I think coming from Apple, it was to be expected that a model more basic will start here. After that, there will be more expensive models with 256 or even 512GB. And finally, the price announced for this iPhone in the US has been $599. That is, it rose considerably with respect to the iPhone SE3, which was the previous iPhone that bet on an economic format that cost $429 at its launch. In Mexico, the announced price for iPhone will be 14,999 pesos. This for the most basic edition. Of course, I'm sure Android fans will say, for that price, I'd better buy this and this and this and this other model, and laugh, saying 60Hz screen for this price or a single camera for this price. And yes, if we compare it with Android, I agree with you, but we must remember that this iPhone is aimed at those who already have an iPhone and want to renew it. And in that sense, there is a significant difference of 5,000 Mexican pesos between the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 16, although the iPhone 15 remains the same as the iPhone 16. Being in the Apple catalog, but also still has a price difference of 3,000 pesos, although the ultra-wide camera is added. So this is the strategy that Apple has, and I would very much like to know your opinion. Of course, we will get this device for unboxing, testing, and even comparisons if you request them, so you can know them in much greater depth. For now, this has been all for this video. I hope you liked it. If so, you know you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.